The call came in at 2214 hours, and by the time the gurney hit the trauma bay doors, Dr. Caleb Pruitt already knew it was bad. The ranger's name was Doss. Staff Sergeant, 75th Regiment, extracted from a training accident 40 miles out that had turned into something worse than an accident. His left side was packed with field dressings that had done their job and were now past it. His blood pressure was in the basement. The flight medic who wheeled him in was talking fast, rattling off vitals in a clipped cadence that said, "I got him here, he's yours now, do not waste it." Pulled on gloves and moved to the head of the bed. The trauma bay filled the way it always did. Dr. Shan, the attending, already calling for a chest tray, the two surgical residents jockeying for position, the nurses moving in assigned lanes. It was practiced chaos. It had been inside it enough times to know his place in it. What he noticed, stepping back for a roll of gauze, was her. She had come in quietly, the way people who belong somewhere come in, not the way people who are uncertain come in. Young. Dark hair pulled back. Her scrubs had the crisp look of a nurse, still inside her first year on the ward, but her hands were already gloved, and she was already at the medication cart, pulling a labeled draw of epinephrine, with a practiced two-finger grip that looked more like habit than training, filed it away and went back to work. Colonel Harwick arrived 2 minutes later. He was the base's senior medical officer, a tall man, with the manner of someone accustomed to rooms rearranging themselves at his entrance. He stood at the bay door for 4 seconds, reading the scene, and then his gaze stopped on her. "Who authorized a first year on this case?" he said. No one answered immediately. "She's Ward 3, one of the charge nurses offered. Pulled for the surge." Harwick looked at the nurse, and then back at the young woman at the medication cart. "Ward 3 is not this room. Clear her out." It watched her. She did not flinch, did not look up, did not stop drawing the epinephrine. She capped the syringe, labeled it, set it in the tray. Then she looked at Harwick with an expression Pruitt could not quite name. Not defiance, not apology. Something flatter than either. Something that belonged on older faces. "Sir," she said, and stepped toward the door. Harwick turned back to the bed. The room exhaled and moved. Pruitt told himself it was the right call. First years didn't run traumas like this. Harwick knew the room. That was the job. He told himself that for about 90 seconds. Then Doss's oxygen saturation dropped off the screen. It happened fast, the way airway crises do. One moment the waveform was cycling, the next it was gone, and Dr. Shan was calling for the laryngoscope before the monitor had finished alarming. Pruitt moved to bag the patient. Shan took the scope, positioned, attempted the intubation, failed, repositioned, failed again. The saturation counter was reading numbers. Pruitt did not like reading. "I need a different blade," Shan said. The surgical resident handed him one. He tried again. The door opened. She walked back in. Not fast, not slow. The same flat composure she had carried out. She moved to the equipment wall without speaking. Pruitt saw her eyes go across the tray once. A single cataloging look, and then she said, in a voice directed at nobody and everybody, "Do you have a Melker? 14 French or close." Nobody said anything. "It's a surgical airway kit," she said. "Crick tray if you call it that. Second drawer right wall if this bay runs the same as Ballad." Pruitt had no idea what Ballad was. Shan pulled the scope out. His jaw was tight. "I can manage this." She did not argue. She crossed to the second drawer on the right wall, found the kit, had it open on the tray in the time it took the room to blink. "He's been down 90 seconds, she said, still not arguing. Still, just reporting. "The anatomy's displaced. You won't thread it from above. This is faster," Harwick said, from somewhere behind Pruitt. "Get her." And that was when Doss moved. Not much. He was barely conscious, his system running on vapor. But his right hand came off the mattress and found the edge of the tray and then moved. Slow, certain, deliberate, to close around her wrist. The room stopped. His eyes were not focused on the ceiling, or on the monitors, or on the lights. They were on her. His mouth moved. Came out was barely volume, just breath-shaped into sound. But the bay was quiet enough that Pruitt heard it clearly. Renfall. She looked at him. Something moved in her face, not much, a fraction, like a door that had been locked a long time shifted in its frame. "Got you," she said. "Hold on." And she worked. What she did to that airway, Pruitt would spend the next 2 days trying to find in a manual. The technique was not improvised. That was the thing he kept coming back to, afterward, to nobody, because there was nobody to talk to who would fully understand it. It was methodical. Every movement had a reason and a sequence. Her left hand managing the field, her right placing the instrument with a precision that looked like it had been built into her at a cellular level. Sure. Angle, hold, release. It was the work of someone who had done this in conditions where the lights were worse and the field was moving and patient was more than one. 31 seconds. The waveform came back. The saturation began climbing. 40 seconds in, Doss was breathing. 60 seconds in, his pressure was moving in the right direction for the first time since the bay doors opened. Dr. Shan stood at the foot of the bed with the laryngoscope still in his hand, and he did not say anything. Harwick had not moved, turned to look at the trauma director, Dr. Miriam Cole, who had come in somewhere in the middle of all of it, and now stood at the terminal on the east wall. Cole was a 26-year physician. Pruitt had watched her handle 3 simultaneous criticals without raising her voice. He had never seen her face do what it was doing now. Her eyes moved from the screen to the nurse, standing at the bed, and back to the screen. "Sarah Voss," she said. It was not a question, it was more like something being confirmed. "Admitted to this ward 41 days ago." She paused. "Air service, 75th Ranger Regiment. Combat medicine, 7 years." Another pause. Youngest woman to complete the Ranger Combat Medicine qualification. She stopped. She looked at the screen for a long moment. Distinguished Service Medal. Classified citation. Call sign, and here she said it plainly. The way you read something aloud when you want to be certain you are reading it correctly. Renfall. 11 hours. Collapsed firebase. 6-man team. Sole medical operator. The room held the way rooms hold when they understand that something fundamental has just been corrected. Harwick had not spoken in 4 minutes. In the corridor outside the bay, Pruitt saw this through the window in the door, and would not forget it. 8 men were standing. They had been there, he realized, since before the airway failed. Sitting, waiting. Big men in the civilian clothes, that big men in that branch where, when they do not want to be noticed, which is to say they were very noticeable. 8 of them. And at some point in the last few minutes, all 8 of them had stood up. Not because anyone told them to. Not because there was a command. They were just standing, facing the door. Pruitt looked at Voss. She had stepped back from the bed. Doss was stable, his hand still loosely closed around her wrist. She was watching the monitor, not the room. Her expression returned to that flat, watchful composure. The same face she'd had at the medication cart an hour ago. The same face she'd carried back in through a door she'd been ordered out of. The same face she'd worn while she put an airway into a man who'd been dying. Harwick walked to the terminal. He looked at the screen for a long time. He looked at the wall. He looked at the floor. He did not look at her. Dr. Cole crossed to Voss and stood next to her. She looked at the monitor, then at her. Her voice was not loud. "When you're satisfied he's stable," she said, "I'd like you to lead the debrief." Voss looked at Doss. His saturation was holding. His pressure was climbing. The waveform was regular and clean. "Give me 10 minutes," she said, stood against the wall, and watched the bay settle back into its practiced rhythms around a woman the room had tried to send away. He thought about the 90 seconds the airway was down. He thought about the word Doss had used. Not her name, not her rank, just the single word he had reached for in the dark. From somewhere below consciousness, from whatever part of a person remembers what kept them alive before. He thought about the drawer she had gone to without being told, technique that was not improvised. He thought about the men standing in the corridor without a command. Outside, through the small window in the door, they were still standing. He wasn't sure they had moved at all. He pulled off his gloves slowly and set them on the tray. There was a lot, he understood, that he had not known about this room. About who was in it. About what it meant when someone walked back through a door they'd been ordered out of, calm and quiet and carrying what they knew, and simply got to work. He thought he would spend a long time thinking about that. What it looked like when someone already knew who they were and did not need the room to figure it out first. The monitor beeped steady and even. Doss was breathing. Outside the door, the 8 men were still standing.